Ballet Bird is a streaming site designed by former Pacific Northwest Ballet principal dancer Julie Tobiasen. Ballet Bird offers ballet classes for anyone at any level of training that you can do from the comfort of your home or studio. After many years performing as a professional ballerina and decades of teaching at all levels of ballet, Julie is excited to offer her training for more people like you. Classes are designed for large and small spaces and for all levels. The low monthly membership fee is less than one in-person class and is accessible 24/7 with new classes added every month. Ballet Bird is a great addition to your regular in-studio training as well. Take advantage of the 10-day free trial and use the discount code COD25 to get 25% off through June 30th, 2023 at balletbird.com. Whether you are just starting your ballet journey today or you're a seasoned professional, Ballet Bird is the place for you. Visit balletbird.com or click the link in the show notes.
I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Sean Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
On today's episode of Conversations on Dance, we are joined by choreographer Omar Román De Jesús. Omar takes us through his early training in Puerto Rico, the leap of faith he took in moving to New York City, and how his humble early choreographic beginnings have led to a Princess Grace Award and commissions from world-renowned companies. Omar's first work for Ballet Hispanico will premiere at New York City Center this summer, with performances running June 1st through the 3rd, on a program featuring additional works by Pedro Ruiz, Michelle Manzanales, and William Forsythe. Tickets can be purchased at nycitycenter.org. Omar, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are here to hear the nitty-gritty about your upcoming work at Ballet Hispanico, but we'd love to just hear a little bit about your journey with dance, how you first fell in love and started to pursue it at a young age.
Yeah, of course. First, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here sharing. But yeah, I think I was always in love with dance. I think it was always within me. I always like to tell this story about how I used to be at my grandma's house. She helped raise me, and I will always play like cassettes of Shakira and the Backstreet Boys, and I will dance in front of the mirror. And my mom catch me a couple of times in that, which I was always embarrassed, but she noticed this passion of mine, and then she asked me if I wanted to take dance classes. And at that time, I really didn't know you could pursue dance as anything, hobby or career or anything. So she helped open that path for me. And then as soon as I took my first class, it was jazz class. I never looked back. I was like, okay, this is it for me. And I dived in. And it was like 2 years after that I was 10 at the time, I believe. And then 2 years after that, I was told to take my first ballet class, which I was like, no. And I saw the dance belt and I was like, no. And like, I was terrified of it. And, in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of like machismo, and I was afraid of people calling me names, and it was the idea of being in tights and having my friends know about it was pretty hard, but I went for it, and that's kind of like how everything started.
What was your reaction to ballet? So you were kind of thinking like, oh, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to give it a try. I've been doing all this fun jazz. It's like freedom. And then to get to kind of this more structure, was that something you took to immediately, or was it always kind of like not your fave?
No. Well, when you start ballet at that young age, you're not like doing like professional adagio, like you're pretty much like doing creative games and rolling around the floor, and it started very fun. There was a process of like maybe 2 years before I understood that this is something I could take seriously. But then there was a click where I all that I could think of was ballet. There's this friend of mine that showed me a video of Baryshnikov doing Don Quixote with ABT, and like that really impacted me, seeing a man like dancing that way with that source of charisma, unapologetic, fearless. Like it really inspired me, and I was like, okay, this is what I want to pursue. So I pretty much left everything else just to dedicate myself to become a ballerina, pretty much. And join. There's a company in Puerto Rico called Ballet Teatro Nacional de Puerto Rico. So I joined that company at 15 and started a professional career really early on there. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were those early years like for you working professionally? Yeah, what was that transition? I mean, that's quite young to be starting a career.
I had tremendous teachers, very hardcore, demanding teachers. There was they took it super seriously. And so I had that strict direction. And I was always driven. So I worked really hard to be the best that I could. So everything I did for breakfast, lunch, and dinner was ballet. And I had incredible coaching. I was lucky that this person, his name was Miguel Campaneria. He took me under his wing, and he didn't only just train me under the umbrella of Ballet Teatro. He took me on tour and gave me experiences dancing internationally. He took me to Japan even, and to competitions, and exposed me to higher levels of what I'm used to see and be surrounded by. So to get like a good smack of reality. So when I come home, I it's not just what I'm seeing around me, but it's like what I've seen outside of what's surrounding me every day. So now I can work every day. Every time I take a ballet class and I'm at the bar center, I'm not thinking tomorrow. I'm thinking 5 years from now. But that was pretty cool. Until they brought this contemporary choreographer, and I experienced my first contemporary work, and that was the next click. I was like, I don't think I want to do ballet anymore. I finally able to, like all this passion and all this stuff that I had for ballet all of a sudden started, like this piece. It was made by a choreographer, Puerto Rican choreographer called Rodney Rivera. I was able to put all of this technique and all this training and translate all of that into feelings, and like actually be able to enter a space from not just from a character that is like a prince or a slave. I could be there. It was me. It was like I could these roles were made based on who I was already as a person. So I was able to express like sorrow and happiness and joy, anything through this, and I didn't have to hold my breath, and it wasn't so much about like the angles and achieving some expectation of perfection. All of that, like immediately it brushed everything I knew. And I'm like that. I as soon as I feel these clicks, it's like I immediately feel like I'm wasting time, and I'm like, what can I do? Where do I get more of this? And in Puerto Rico, there's not so many resources or spaces where I could access contemporary dance. So I had to start looking outside, and I was 18, 19 at the time. And that's when I decided to go audition in New York City. I auditioned for the A-list school, and they gave me a scholarship to train in their school for that year. And I decided to go. I was like, okay, I'm going. And like I always share also, a terrible thing for my ego. I literally was a soloist in this ballet company.
That's what I was just wondering. Yeah. How did you make that adjustment? I mean, you just at such a young age, you've already had all these experiences being a professional and that taste. And then could seem to sound like you're going backwards, even though at 18, it's still totally fine to be in the school. So what was that like for you?
Hard. Like, first of all, dealing with the language barrier. I didn't know any English whatsoever at that time, so I couldn't speak or communicate to anybody. Making friends was hard. Just the New York, like, I mean, rent, a lot, you know, all these challenges, financial challenges, language challenges, and then my ego. Like, just like I was placed in ballet, I was placed on the highest level entering, but then modern, Horton, like all of these other technique classes, level 1. And I was just like, wow, level 1. And like, what does this mean? And I mean, and then I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, another smack on my face of reality. And then it was like, this is starting from scratch again. And I had to adjust, and it was good. It's good. It kept me humble, and yeah. And at some point that was my reality. It was like, okay, now I'm not pursuing ballet. I'm not this rising person anymore. I'm like, have to like plant new seeds, because that's where my passion was then. And yeah, I spent 2 years there building myself. Yeah.
At what point do you feel like you started to see the fruits of your labor, to see that like that struggle, or that, I guess, sacrifice was starting to pay off for you and take you to a place that you had aspired to?
At Ailey, they like in many educational institutions like that, they bring different choreographers, and I wasn't allowed my first year to audition to a lot of the things. So in my second year, the levels that I was at then level 2, then those requirements kind of like need to meet for you to be able to audition for certain things. So I was able to start auditioning for choreographers and start to get the experiences of work, of doing exactly what I wanted to do, working with creators that have their own ways of working beyond technique. And it was about creativity. And I remember I got to work with Lonnie Landon. She was the first person that like really opened up my mind to new possibilities in a creative way. Like it wasn't anymore about stretch your knees, point your feet. It was like imagery and these tasks that would like open up your imagination. And then I felt like a creator myself in the space. So that was another boom moment for me. And one of those those aha moments that happen, I feel like the growth that you're able to achieve in the after that happens is so much faster, because you want, all of a sudden you understand how much better you can be or how much more you can accomplish. So then you like get to work. And even when I started going to my technique classes, I started thinking about them differently. So I think my second year at Ailey was like a time where things started to flourish, and connecting, also like the power of networking. Like I will work with a choreographer and like, hey, who do you work? Reading their bio and being like, hey, I noticed you work with this company. Like, I'm interested in working with this company. Do you think I will be a good fit? Like, and just starting these conversations. And yeah, there's a lot of that. And also they Ailey has it's a concert for choreography. So a student gets to audition with their choreographies, and then there's a showcase. So that's where I did my very first choreography. And I did a duet with my best friend, which we rehearsed partially at the Ailey Studios and partially at my own house. And we did this thing for fun. Like at this point, I also don't know much about what a choreographer is, or I just knew I like the idea of creating something and having fun. So let's have fun, did this thing. And towards the end, like when we presented it, like, it was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, I really like this idea. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then we started to like, we started to work on it. And then towards the end, like when we presented it, like we finished. We just were like, okay, let's dance. We finished the piece and we had this standing ovation. And we were both looking at each other like, what's happening? Like we didn't know, like we did something good. And I came home that day realizing like maybe I have a gift for choreography. Maybe this is something that I could be good at. And yeah, that was definitely a moment that impacted me. And I decided to then find any space that I could to get in a studio with my friends and create anything.
So how did you kind of work to balance that, your interest in choreography and then your career? Because you're still just kind of at the beginning of your career, at least in the US, right? So how did you balance those two things and decide which path to take yourself on? Or how did you decide that you could go on both paths at the same time?
Yes, I locally had people that help guide me. And a lot of people were like, Omar, yes, you love choreography, but you need to keep dancing. And like only by your experiencing dancing with other people, you will know more about how you want your choreography to be. You will be influenced by more people, all that stuff. So I chose to focus in dance as to become a dancer. So I auditioned for Parsons. I started my professional career there, and I spent like about 4 years with that company. And then I freelanced for a little bit, and then I joined Ballet Hispánico and danced a whole 1 season with them before deciding to focus fully in choreography. But during the Parsons time, every time that we have layoff or time off, that will be my time to rent some space and call friends and make something. I didn't even have a lot of people ask me, a lot of young choreographers asked me, how do you start it? How do you get to where you got? And I was just like, you just jump into the pool. Like you just do it. Like it was, I never had like a performance that I know I was getting ready for. I started the thing and I was like, okay, I want to work with these dancers. Let me get this space. Let's create something. And in that process, once you start realizing you have something you may want to share, then I start looking for the performance opportunity or sharing a bill with somebody else that is doing the exact same thing as me. I had to pay to do these things. Like I wasn't like, here's some money so you can present. It was like, okay, I had to like, invest in myself. So that's how I did it.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the defining characteristics of these early works? Like you had so much to pull from. You have your strong ballet training, but then you obviously had fallen in love with a more contemporary aesthetic. So what were some of your early choreographic influences? Like what did those early works of yours look like?
How does they look like? They have weirdly been theatrical. Which I never experienced with anybody. I think like influences, like Parsons influenced me highly in the sense of athleticism, physicality, and entertainment. I think there's a big element of entertainment to my work, and the physicality. But when it comes to storytelling, I guess as you're asking me this right now, and I never even thought about that, which is interesting because I actually never took a class where anybody said what if you become a clown and and do these things. Like I never had that, but that was like the first thing I did. I literally did this like clown piece, and created characters, and I never done that. And it's weird. It's like I never also took a choreography class or a composition class. None of that. It was all out of pure intuition, and just like this is what about this? Like there was no too much deep thinking behind it. Like who do I want to become? Like there was none of that at the beginning. Now definitely.
Well, it stems back from that time dancing with to Shakira music, right? In your bedroom. I mean, that's where the inspo comes from.
Totally.
So you've won numerous prestigious awards for your choreography. How do those opportunities really help? How did that help propel your choreography career forward?
I think, I love this question. You work so hard for the recognition or just to get your work out there, to be honest. And then this recognition, which brings some financial support with it, came along. And yes, it all helps, but it doesn't mean you stop working. Like you get an award or you get recognized by a prestigious organization, you sit down and things stops from happening. So it's like, how do you use that to propel you to the next thing? Like, how do you embrace the opportunity? Like if like Princess Grace, for example, I'm a Princess Grace award from last year, and what does that mean for me? What does it mean for them? Like how can I like continue a conversation with them? Like what? And I think it's not just I got something. Like it's about both of the things, and how do we meet in the middle, and how we can, how do you expand on those gifts? I think that's what's really important, that it's not just like, oh, like you got an award, your career is set for life. Like that's just not a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, what are some of the defining moments? I mean, I'm sure like getting that sort of honor makes you consider, wow, I'm doing something well. I'm on this path that I've had an aspiration to be on. But are there other moments in your career, like maybe a specific work you created or a specific company you were working for, where you're like, making that specific work kind of allowed you to affirm that you are meant to be a choreographer and this is the right path for you?
Yeah, totally. Thank you. It was during my time with Parsons. They have a program called Generation. They have a program called Generation now, and David gave me the chance, the opportunity to create for the company that year as I was dancing with them. That year we were working, we were doing outreach program and working with children in the autistic spectrum. And those experiences, when David tells me about the opportunity and I was trying to think about what I wanted to build and make for the company, this is something that we all have experienced together. I know these dancers, and so I started building this piece, and which is called Daniel. It was that moment where I presented that piece at the Joyce. It was so full. It was filled with. It was emotionally charged. Everybody understood what we were doing in the room. I didn't have to come with like so much research to share with dancers so they understand what I'm talking about. Like we all have done this for 2 years prior this creation process, and we presented it at the Joyce, and it was the first time I presented something, and like that I knew touched many people, and I received emails from audience members, and people came multiple times to see the work, and yeah, it felt like a big accomplishment, which then brought incredible fear, because I was like, how am I going to like do, like you do something great and then you're like, I have to do great things now all the time. I need to fail, like I need to allow myself to, but yeah, Daniel was the piece that Eduardo Vilaro from Ballet Hispánico saw, that created, that started a conversation between us.
Each year, the Clive and Valerie Barnes Foundation provides recognition, encouragement, and financial support to two talented young professionals, one in dance and one in theater, thus honoring the memory of the many years of critical work and the warm personal generosity of Clive Barnes and Valerie Taylor. This year's finalists have been nominated by the Foundation's 11-member selection committee comprised of art journalists and accomplished professionals in each field. Finalists were selected based on live performances given in New York City between January and December of 2022. Winners in each category will be announced on May 22nd at the 13th Annual Clive Barnes Award at Florence Gould Hall in New York City. Guest presenters include Pam Tanowitz and Alex Sharp. For more information or to donate, visit cvbarnesfoundation.org. That's cvbarnesfoundation.org, or click the link in the show notes. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your first ballet for Ballet Hispanico, the world premiere. It will be having its world premiere at City Center June 1st through 3rd. So tell us how he contacted you after seeing that show and how you guys kind of started to discuss what this work would start to become.
Yes, he called me last year, and I remember I was coming out of a plane, and I was in security, and I get this phone call, and I was just like, wait a second, and I don't know why I have his phone number saved, but anyway, he answer, of course, and he says, hey, I want to offer you a commission for the company. And I was like, happy dance in the airport. Like creating for Ballet Hispanico has always been a dream of mine, so like it was big deal. And so we discussed like very quickly scheduled and possibilities, and that was how everything started. And then later on he contacted me again, and then he started talking to me about like just the logistical things. And the first thing he said was City Center. So then I like literally to run out of the apartment and just like, call my mom and my dad and just like, oh my gosh, you don't know what City Center is, but it's huge. And
yeah, I mean, City Center is obviously it's an iconic, a very important historical dance venue. So that's a really big deal. Can you tell us a little bit about if there were any parameters when Eduardo was calling you? Like what does he set out as, I guess, what the company wants from you? Is it just, do you have free reign? Or is it like, we need you to create a 20-minute work to a string quartet? You know what I mean? Like, what are the specifics there? How much push and pull is it between you and what the company needs for this creation?
Wow, that's an incredible question. There is a big percentage of freedom that is just about supporting my vision, my choreographic vision, and the perspectives that I get to bring to the company. I think the challenges are more, which like a lot of things that I'm learning. They're a union house. They're unionized, and then they go to theaters that maybe also are union. So like that comes with many challenges that are more about financials. So something simple like I want an umbrella. Like all of a sudden, it's not that simple. You know, when I work with my own company, I can do many different things because I don't have those rules that I had, or like if you want a dancer to jump over a big box, like that, all of a sudden that's a hazard pay. That means
right.
That means you have to, like all of that, and so we talked about creating a work that could be presented in many different spaces. So that was one thing. So yeah, like we, obviously I think city center, so I think big. So the beginning conversations were like, can we rig a person from the ceiling? Can we do certain things? My brain was like really thinking bigger, and then I had to go back and be like, no,
scale it back.
let's simplify, and it was a big reality into like bigger companies doesn't necessarily can do bigger things. They actually face many more challenges that we don't know when you're looking from the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit what your process is like? Take us through what it's like to work with you in the studio. Do you come in with a very specific vision, all written out, this is what we're going to do? Or are you kind of coming in with an outline, feeding off the dancers? How do you like to work?
Yeah. Every process is different, and every space is different. So it depends. I first look at the time that I get with dancers. Depends on that time. It can go different ways. If I had short time, that means I have to do homework and a lot of homework, and I had to come with a very strict plan and create a plan B in case that doesn't work. If I have more time, then I love just coming with blank page. Allow the piece to come into itself. Like see what the everyday interactions, see how dancers behave in space, and like see what kind of it becomes about a collaboration, the collaboration between all parts, and how do we come together and understanding what world can exist for the people in the room to be celebrated, my vision to be seen, and also celebrate and respect the visions of the company and organizations that are hiring you. When in this particular case with Ballet Hispanico, I had 2 weeks to create this work. So it was short and it was very concentrated. I started thinking that I started with a simple idea of musical chairs, turns, Russian roulette, and something about power dynamics, and how that power dynamic can shift from a character to a different character. And it started simple like that, but then it was like a Monday we will do something, and then I will have to come home with my creative team and discuss for another 3 hours what's happening, what can happen, how do we make that work. Like all of a sudden we were building a story, and the story in this case is being said through one hat. And every time that somebody finds this hat, they have the most power, and then they control the room as they see fit. And then the piece kind of like it's a journey to take that power away from this particular godlike individual. So it's the first time that I have always worked with narrative and theatricality, but it's the first time that like there is a very clear see-through line beginning through end of how we go from one thing to the next one. I'm very excited about it. Yeah.
2 weeks is it's fast. That's not a lot of time. And I'm wondering how much of an advantage was it for you that you are familiar? I'm guessing you're familiar with the dancers. Maybe you had even performed alongside some of them. But obviously the organization you've worked for previously, you know, Eduardo, how much of an advantage was it that you at least had that inside look versus if you just showed up somewhere you'd never known and had to bang something out in 2 weeks?
Yeah, Ballet Hispánico has a program called Instituto Choreográfico. I was able to do that program, which is Instituto is to allow choreographers like myself to have tools to develop choreographic ideas. So it wasn't a time to build the piece. It wasn't a time it was time to research. It was time to learn about the people in the room. So I used that time to work on ideas, like random ideas. And that space was about relationship building with dancers to understand how they think, what are their gifts, what are their weaknesses. And so like now when I come back, and I'm thinking about, and we're talking about this piece, I'm thinking about how can I use those gifts of that person? How can I use the gifts of that person? What piece can we build together? And this is the first time, honestly, when I heard 2 weeks, like, which is kind of common, to be honest. That's like how much time most companies will give you. I I, for the first time, opened my process for opinion. So every 2 days, I will bring somebody into the room and I was like, what do you think? And just like getting into that vulnerable space and just actually be able to listen. This is what I'm seeing, like, and just open up for conversations daily, pretty much. I hired 3 of my dancers that have been with me since the get-go, since I started doing my very first group piece. And so they assisted me in the process. So I had the whole room activated pretty much the whole time. Like if I was working on something, they were working with other people in the side. It's people that I work with me for like about 6-7 years. So like I know I can trust them with my vision, and when they're sharing, I know that they're sharing the right information. So, and also just asking them, they were like, what if this happened? What if this happened? So like literally it was a team effort.
When you were mentioning your, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. I was just going to bring this up. I think it's interesting because that being a choreographer could be a sort of lonely pursuit. You don't have to get feedback from anyone, and many choreographers learn the craft on their own. You don't necessarily need to go to a composition class. But I love that you've brought this up, that you are seeking the feedback, because it's something that Troy Schumacher, my good friend and the director of Ballet Collective,
Yes, I love
something I really appreciate, that when I work with him, he brings me into that part of the process. Like, I mean, I remember the first time he asked me my opinion of his work, I was like, well, do you want me to actually give it? But it is like, as dancers, we get constant feedback. It's just 24/7, like point your foot, angle your head this way. But a choreographer doesn't necessarily do that. So I think you are going to be working with Ballet Collective this year. So I'm just hearing you say that already makes me think that you and Troy are going to really connect. So that's a similarity I see in both of you.
Yes, we met a couple of times, and it's. I think we are in the same page about so many things. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
When you were mentioning before your creative team, are these dancers part of your creative team? Like, who else is having these 3-hour conversations with you at the end of the day?
Yeah, this dancer, Ian Spring, Rachel Secrets, and Rafael Cañals. They're just such goofballs, and they're just so funny, and it's like the perfect combination of like, we want to take this very seriously because we want to make incredible art, but also like, let's have fun.
Yeah, of course.
And so like sometimes they just get into the studio and do these like weird things, and I'm like, I think we're doing that. And then we'll like expand on whatever like they may come as, like just being themselves in space. But then it was important for me that they like saw the process from the beginning, so they understand exactly what I'm going for, what the piece is about. So then when like I open, like we will meet after, or just get on a phone call after rehearsal, and just like, okay, so these are my worries. What do you think? Where do we need to put the more attention on? How can So yeah, they were amazing. They were amazing. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. I was wondering if you were talking about like lighting people or costume designers. So that was really interesting to hear. That was just like you guys as dancers just talking about the choreography, like that in depth together and collaborating at the end of the day. It's just interesting because as a dancer, when we're in the studio, we just leave and we go home and we, review what we learned that day. But I always have wondered, I'm like, what are they doing right now? Like, what are they thinking about from the end of the day? It's interesting to hear.
Yeah. I'd like to hear a little bit more. You're talking about that process of getting to know dancers and exploring what makes them tick and the qualities that you want to draw out in them. But what qualities are you attracted to in dancers as a choreographer? Like, what are you seeking out when you're assembling your cast?
Excellent question. I love hardworking, passionate, that's like the base foundation. I like working with dancers that are committed to themselves. I don't appreciate working with dancers who expect that you will give them every single part of the puzzle. It's important that dancers understand that they're collaborators in the room. That doesn't mean that I'm going to send them to a corner and say, come up with 10 phrases on your own with no instruction. Like, that's just not
right,
it.
right.
Like, I'm pretty much coming up with most of the steps and like every part of the puzzle, but dancers, like, how you like to move, like you like, and you how good do you really want to be, and like how much do you want to serve the process. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not, it's not just about serving myself, it's the process. So like, we're all working towards this thing that we need to respect. So like, I feel like when I see dancers that respect the process and want the best to support any vision of whoever comes into the room, like in some spaces, I come, and what if like the next day, Jiri Killian comes? Are you going to work harder for Jiri Killian that you're going to work for me because I'm an emerging choreographer and he's like Jiri Killian? I understand like everybody will feel much differently regardless. That's just inevitable, but you shouldn't work differently because. So once you know that you're in the room with dancers that are just like, I'm going to be the best that I can regardless who you are, then I just have a lot of respect for that, because the process then can actually go. It takes off. Like, you have 2 weeks.
Right.
It's like we have to arrive somewhere, and I don't like the process to be just about, let's put this product out. It's important to have the conversations and to have a little time to explore and to challenge them. So yeah.
I wonder what you're hoping ultimately that audience members will take away from this performance at City Center with Ballet Hispanico.
Okay. I think it's important for me that the audience members sit to experience dance as they sit to experience music. I feel like a lot of take a look at the dance and the moving bodies as an added melody to the soundtrack. So one that offers visual stimulation and offers narrative or story, or depends what the choreography is. But in my case, it's important that they don't try to work so hard to make sense of something, because like we're not making a musical, we're not making a play, we're tackling on creativity and imagination. And I feel like it's mainly about, what do you feel? How does it make you feel when you experience what you experience? Like, yes, there's a certain level of entertainment. Yes, but it's not all. I'm not making work just so you like it, like I want you to like it. I want you to consider, I love that. but it's really not about that. There's many feelings that people can feel, and that they should allow themselves to do that.
Yeah. I bet you can kind of get hung up, right? Like worrying too much. Like, is the audience going to like this? Is the audience going to like this? Like, it probably is better just to leave that aside and just create the art, and then hope for the audience reception that you dream of.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
Easier said than done, though. I'm just
fair.
I mean, it's the same thing for a dancer, right?
That's true.
Like, imagine trying to let that go before performance. Okay, so we hope that everyone in New York City comes and checks this out June 1st through 3rd, but I'm sure you have other things in the pipeline that maybe you can give us a little preview about. You'll have your premiere at Ballet Collective later in the fall in New York. I think the venue is yet to be announced, but what else are you working on this year?
Yes, I am proud to say that I'm like the first inaugural fellow at Katzbahn. It's a collaboration between Baryshnik Art Center and Katzbahn. So I'm going to be in a 2-week residency with them and my own company, Boca Tuya. So I'm going to be working with my dancers again, which I'm very excited about. It's the beginning of a new project. So that will be like research yeah. And then I'm doing Ballet Collective, as you mentioned. I'm working with a couple individuals, like a soloist from New York City Ballet, and this very young, which I have to mention, she's like 16 or 17. I met her at Move NYC, directed by Nigel and Chanel da Silva. Is so talented, and I'm doing a solo on her, and I'm just so excited. And there's other things that I don't think I can announce yet.
Okay. Well, when you're ready, we'll bring you back on the podcast and we'll talk about it then.
Okay, I would love to be back. It's great talking to you both.
Thank you so much for your time. We
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it.
Yeah, of course. Have a good one.
Conversations on Dance is a part of the Acast Creator Network. For more information, visit conversationsondancepod.com.